and welcome, Lucy, to the Cut the Shit podcast. Thank you very much, first and foremost, for agreeing to appear on this episode. It's like we've just been discussing. This has sort of come at a very, I suppose, sort of its universal timing. It's come at the time where it's like quite needed in my life. I lost my grandfather on the 3rd of May. Was that the Sunday? It was a Sunday. And he, although he was 94, so, everybody's sort of comment on that is, oh, what a good, good innings,
Mm,
good
mhm,
life.
mm.
And it was expected for the last sort of 10 years because he's had angina, quadruple bypass, he had 3 major strokes. And that was the last time that I looked at him and I thought, yeah, he's not going to last a week. And then I went and visited him on the Wednesday and he was sat upright making jokes. So he's lasted way beyond what anybody should or thought he would do. But as I was saying, it's a very surreal one, this one, because it's my last grandparent. And I think it's very, very important. I wanted to have this episode and this conversation with you because grief is something that's quite often skirted around in conversation. So if you put it one way, I've never had a chat about grief with my mates. It's never been on the table as, oh, how do you feel about grief? It's all, people ask, how you coping? Are you okay? But there's no real open conversation about
Mhm,
grief as
mm,
a thing. It's just sort of ignored.
You're absolutely right. And first of all, thank you so much for having me on and for holding a space and opening up this conversation. And like we were saying before, we're just not very good. In fact, we're terrible, especially in this country, about, we're terrible at talking about death and dying. And so I am thrilled to be here and have this conversation with you. And I'm very much looking forward to getting through the weeds and getting into it and getting it out there. Because like we were saying, it's going to happen to us all. And whether or not that is death, dying, bereavement, or whether or not that is a grief we find through empty nest or pet loss or menopause grief or not being able to have children or all of the other things when your children leave home. So there can be many moments in our life and from a very young age where we experience grief, and whether or not we can name it as that at the
Mm.
time, but it will touch us all at some point in some way. And so we've got to get out there and start having those ugly, difficult, painful, messy, awkward, very awkward conversations because we're so very British about it, aren't we? We're very
Yeah.
much like, oh, are you okay? Or, oh, well, you're doing very well. Or, oh, you'll feel better soon, or all of the rubbish. And I'm not highlighting the best of them, but the really rubbish things that we can
Mm.
say, not out of intent,
No,
but just
it's,
through
I
that
think
learned.
it's the
Oh,
uncomfortable feel. It's like when
correct.
I've had it, I still do it now. It's like if somebody's, I never know what to say. So like when somebody said, so I've just told you my granddad died 2 weeks ago.
Mhm,
If somebody said that to me, it's like,
mhm,
I feel awkward. I
mhm.
don't know, the typical of like, oh, sorry to hear about that.
Yeah.
But I must admit, and half the time I don't really mean that because I didn't know the person. I I feel bad for whatever they're going through, but I didn't know the person. I'm not in that dynamic. I don't have any emotional connection to it. But I saw something the other day, and I can't remember. I'm not going to be able to give credit to its due, but it was somebody. He's on the podcast circuit. I can't remember who it was though.
Link
I
it up.
know I will do. But he was mentioning about the way to sort of behave if somebody's grieving is instead of saying, do you want me to bring you some food or do you want me to do that? Just do it. Don't ask. Don't, give them an out or an option because people don't like to feel like a burden.
Mm,
Just go and do it. And it's that sort of do it now, ask for forgiveness later,
yeah.
or or just, you're going to miss out and you're going to not
And
do
I
what
think
all you can.
Yeah, and I think on that, I think what I hear a lot in the conversations I'm having are in that moment in the beginning, after the death of someone close to you or someone you've loved, there is all the doing. So we have
Mm,
to do all the stuff, and the people around us do all the stuff. So they might bring us the food and make the phone calls to us and check in how we are and offer us a lift somewhere or whatever it may be. All
mhm.
of that doing happens in the beginning, but actually, and that's important, and you're right, if you can do it, just do the thing. Um, but there's an even more important time that comes after the doing, much later down the line. So sometimes 2, 3, 4, 6 months later, when the person is left with the being
Yeah,
of
yeah.
grief and everybody stops the doing. And I hear it so often where people go, well, early on, people are there and there is the food brought round and there is the contact and there are the phone calls and the letters do come through the mat and the emails do drop into your inbox. And then you're very busy with all of that and all of the doing of your own stuff. And then there comes the point where there is the being. And that's almost a time where what we need to learn is that that can be even more of a helpful time to bring the food and make the call, because at that point it goes very quiet for
Mm,
people. And that's when they can be really left with their real feelings, because there isn't any time necessarily to feel that feeling when you're doing the doing.
mm. Yeah, well, it is. I think that's going to be the difficult thing for most people is when, and I think I've got that to come. I'm waiting for it, or I'm expecting it at some point. Is I've been through one, two, three, four close personal deaths where ultimately, I'd been there for three of them now, three of them now, and actually being in the room. One was my nana, one was my granddad, and my stepdad as well. And I think the the difficulty for me was, the first one. I'll go back. The first one was my nana. My nana brought me up from being very, very young. She was always there. She was like the constant, non-judgmental, non-conditional sort of love person in my life. I could have gone and told her I've just murdered three people, and she'd be like, "Right, I'll put the kettle on." I know that sort of person. She was brilliant. She'd have probably smacked the back of my hand if I'd have done that anyway, and then and then sat with me and made me a brew. But then I was young when she passed away. I'd say young mentally. I was 23 ish.
23 is young, yeah.
Um, And all I did for the next 10 years was sweep it under the rug. And it's like, yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I'm okay. I'm all right. And when I look back, there was a lot of anger. There was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of outbursts. There was a lot of, um, yeah, a lot of not
We
being
make some
truly me.
interesting decisions, don't we, at those times in our lives? Yeah.
Very much so.
Being true to yourself.
Yeah. And you're not yourself. And when I look back now, I can see that I wasn't, because of, it might not have been 100% the reason, but it would have been one of the triggering factors. And then I think through that experience, I grew a real existential fear of death.
Yeah,
Death, it was for days, it'd keep me awake, not being
yeah,
able to sleep for days. It was so it'd get to like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And if I thought about, what if I die, in the next 10 years, and have I got enough time to achieve what I want to achieve? Have I got enough time to do what I want to do and visit where I want to visit? And what about, I haven't set myself up for my daughter, so she's not looked after if I die.
yeah.
And that'd be it. And the next time I'd look at the watch, it'd be like 6 a.m. and I'd be like, oh, shit, slept. I've got like half an hour to try and get some sleep.
Mm,
And
yeah,
that'd go on for days. And it got so bad at one point that, um, I'd been through EMDR therapy, I'd been through CBT therapy, and nothing was really sort of scratching the surface, of it. And I took the decision to go and do psychedelic therapy in a different country. And I did a 7-week course, and the first session cured me completely. It just went completely to the point of like, oh wow, I understand it now. I don't need to be frightened. I don't need to be scared. I don't need to worry. It's fine. And it's really strange.
And when you say cured,
Um, and so yeah, so I say cured in terms of the fact of it. It's completely changed my relationship with death completely, which is really I'm attributing to the reason why I feel completely different with this passing of my granddad than I did. I don't feel upset. I feel annoyed that I don't get to see him and play pool with him and stuff like that anymore. But I don't feel sad. I don't feel upset. I don't feel like I miss him because of what I've been through, and I know kind of what's coming on the other end, if that
I think
makes
this
sense.
is a really interesting topic. I wonder if would you expand a little bit on your
Yeah.
experiences with that? Because I think we're only just unearthing this as a
Yeah.
way to explore and heal ourselves, full stop, with psychedelics. So I wonder if you'd expand a little bit on your experience sort of relating to grief and when you say cured and how it's impacted your recent grief.
Mm.
If you feel comfortable to
Yeah.
like
It's really difficult to sort of describe what happened and what I went through. But ultimately, I wasn't overly religious. I say I was strict religious growing up. So I was an altar boy. I went to church every Sunday, went to confession every Wednesday. And then about 14, maybe a bit sooner, 11, 14, I was like, this is all bullshit. I don't believe in any of this. I don't want to go there anymore. And completely came away from faith and spirituality and religion. And then it's probably early 30s, I started with the therapy and started with sort of the spiritualism and getting back into that element. I kind of, discovering Buddhism and Hinduism and reading sort of the Vedas
mm,
and getting an understanding spiritually of where you're at. And I think that only happens. I had uh, Alex Eli on the podcast not so long back, and he does Kambo and Amazonian medicine and stuff. And
yes.
he's very, very religious. And I was saying, I always find it strange how it's somebody generally mid to late 30s that sort of just has this religious or spiritual awakening. It's never
Why do you
anybody
think that
sooner.
is?
You know what? I
Because I
think it's
think it is a thing. I mean, I'm a decade after you. I'm a decade down the road from that, but I do think it's a thing. What happens at that?
I think it's life. Life needs 10 to 15 years to kick the crap out of you before you before you realize there's something more or
Wasn't it
something
just?
better.
Wasn't it
Um,
just?
but,
Yeah.
so that's
That's a really interesting thought, that point, though, isn't it? Because if you think of epigenetics, environment, is it our environment then that
I think it is.
pushes us or kicks us, like you said, down the path towards a spiritual or whatever kind of awakening that we have at that time in our life? It's
I
interesting.
think I think it's sort of wandering in the desert
Mm,
and then some people get found and some people return to spirituality and religion
mm,
or whatever it may be. And then some people carry on being lost, and that's when you get sort of criminals and so on and so forth down the
mm.
line. But I think it's a really important it should be a very important thing, whether regardless of religion or creed or stamp that you put on it, it's to
Is that a
strive.
knowing of self?
Yeah, I think it's the sort of strive for something more than what you are as a person, and it becomes less about you and more about it
Mm,
and it being life and connection. So that's what happened for me.
mm,
And I then started doing obviously EMDR and CBT and that helped. And then went into a bit of life coaching. as well. And Kathleen's been who that was the most nerve-wracking episode I've ever done, because Kathleen was my life coach for 5 years. She knows every
Oh,
sordid detail.
oh, that
Uh,
was a brave choice for you.
it was. I was sat there shivering and shaking. But she's amazing, is Kathleen. And then with I heard about psychedelic therapy, and I thought, you know what, I want to give it one go at least. And I was kind of pulling, even though I didn't have any, I was pulling my hair out about this whole death thing. And I wasn't overly religious at the time. I was probably spiritual to an extent. And it was, there's a book by Robin Sharma called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And that book was what turned me on to sort of spiritualism in a true sense of the word. It was phenomenal. Like when you read the synopsis on that book, it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
And when I tell people, like, recommend it and tell them what it's about, of this like 9 foot tall sumo wrestler that wears a pink G-string,
Yes.
and people think I'm off the reservation. So I went and did this psychedelic therapy. In the first session, I wasn't sure what to expect, but you have headphones on, eye mask, beanbags, and you lie down on the beanbags and you're all comfortable, you don't move, and then it starts to kick in and it comes in. This is through psilocybin, by the way, so mushrooms. You get it in waves and it comes in a sort of it feels like breathing almost. What I got told was, if you allow yourself, allow yourself, surrender to this feeling, this wave, that's when you will end up going to wherever they want to take you. And I say woke up, in quotes, based on the fact that I didn't really wake up into anywhere, because it was a bright white space. I couldn't see anything. But I felt like I was led down. I felt like a figure that I thought to be Jesus picking me up off the floor. And in front of me, when I stood up, were in a semicircle, was, I couldn't see them, but the feeling of every single person that had passed on, and the sense, or the sentiment was, "Thank fuck you're here. We've been waiting for you."
Oh my gosh.
And as soon as that happened, I kind of woke up and I came out of the space that I was in, and it was so vivid and real that I couldn't have imagined it. It didn't come from creativity. It was something that, or it felt like something happened to me rather than me experiencing it outwards. So that was the moment where it was like, oh shit, something's real. It's
Yeah.
there's something beyond. Since then, I've had a couple of experiences where I've seen, I never knew it was famous, but the Grey Veil, which is, it's almost like a satin chiffon curtain where you can't hear anybody or touch anybody from the other side, but it was my nana that was on the other side of this Grey Veil. And experiences like that have helped me understand that we're not fully aware of anything that happens after death. Death isn't the end. I don't know what's beyond it, but I 100% believe that it's not the end of something. So that's what fundamentally changed my relationship with death. Because when somebody dies, yes, it's sad because we don't get to see them in this physical plane anymore, but I know I will get to see them again eventually when it's my turn. And in the infinite expanse of time, this little sort of next 40, 50 years is just a tiny second blip.
Tiny part.
So that's the way I've got to it. So this has been the first bereavement since I'd gone through that therapy. And that,
Practically for you, so after that experience,
Mhm.
what, because that's quite a big experience, almost out of this world, if you like.
Mhm.
And you say that it's sort of changed and shaped how you have experienced the most recent death close to you. Practically, though, like of a day to day, when you feel so changed, how did that show up for you? Like,
I
what was
was
the realness of that? If that was almost somewhere that you went to?
I think it's you know what's disappeared. I still worry, and I still have normal. You know, anybody with kids worries, it's almost that constant existential worry has just disappeared. It's gone. There's no ticking clock.
Yeah,
There's no sort of, oh, what if I don't do this? It's just like, well, I'm just going to live what I want to do.
yeah,
I kind of treat life like a Labrador in a field. It's just I'll go wherever it takes my fancy.
yes.
Um, and I
So
think
it's
that,
made you live differently,
yeah, completely
right?
from top to bottom, it changed completely changed priorities. So my priority before this therapy, and Kathleen will testify to this, is I was money obsessed. It was like my biggest goal in life was I wanted to be the first millionaire in my family. I wanted to retire at 40. I wanted to do this. I wanted to get this house, and I wanted to spend this much money. And um, ultimately, through a multitude of things, but through the therapy, through something called 7 Levels Deep with Kathleen, and through this therapy, um, money's not even on my radar anymore, which is really strange. I do things that I enjoy, and you know, get to speak to people like yourself, and I get to be creative and do things, and money doesn't even come into the conversation anymore. It's just, am I going to enjoy it? Am I going to learn something from it? Am I going to want to experience it again? If any answer to that question is yes, then I'll do it.
So it's almost like the experience that you had that gave you a deeper, more profound and true to you sense of death and dying has ultimately improved, informed your way of living.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get bogged down with this sort of, I suppose, rat race culture. It's a little bit of a loose colloquialism to use, but it is it is that sort of rat race culture of like, right, well, I need to get this job, and then by the time I'm this age, then I want to be promoted to this, and then I'm going to get a girlfriend and a wife and have kids at this age, and then I'm going to move into this house, and then we're going to get a 5 bedroom across the road, and we're going to pay. And there's so many people that I think get stuck in that. Right, well, this is the next step, and this is the next step, and this is the next step, rather than asking, is it the right step? And is it the step that they should be taking rather than what everybody else thinks they should be taking? Um, I've got friends and family that, why do you do that? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing a podcast? Like, because it's fucking fun,
Yeah.
and I get to speak to people. Like,
And it's
what?
okay, isn't it, to
Yeah,
do things because we love it.
yeah. Why wouldn't,
Well,
like I said? Why wouldn't I? I get to
mm,
speak to awesome experts and people that have done amazing things. And I get to speak to them for 2 hours about
yeah,
whatever I want to speak to them about. I do that for free.
yeah.
Why wouldn't I do it and share that?
I
Um,
think sometimes we've forgotten how to live and that we are allowed to live
mm,
however we want.
yeah,
I think that the deepening of that, of the understanding of that, sometimes only comes when we have had hardship or experience of loss
mm,
in whatever way, shape, or form. It gives you a perspective that you might not have had you not experienced the thing.
100%.
You are forced into a new perspective.
I tried. So when this was potentially a thing, I was struggling imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to speak to these people? These people have done X, Y, and Z. I'm just me. And I was trying to recapture the sort of almost childhood abandonment of,
Yeah,
like, they look at a tree and they don't think, "Can I climb to the top of that tree?" They get to the top of the tree and think, "Oh, I've bit high here. I've
correct.
climbed to the top."
Yeah.
And I've said this on the podcast before. So the experience, so this was a real experience, and I love my daughter for this, and testament to her. Um, so we were driving in the car, and I was having this sort of, the way my brain works. 100 mile an hour thinking, well, I've got my first episode recording next week. Who am I to speak to these people? The first episode was a guy called Carl Jones, who's gone through, he's had a stroke, traumatic brain injury, and he now runs ultra marathons. And he's
Amazing.
doing, what's he doing? The fastest known time of the Welsh Coastal Path this year,
Wow.
which is like, I think it was 860 odd miles, which is just bonkers. Um, Now I look at somebody like that and think, well, I don't run for the bus. So, so who am I to speak to this guy? So I
Maybe
asked,
it's because you don't run for the bus. You need to speak to the
to be
person.
fair, it must have rubbed off on me because since then I've been doing 5Ks and stuff. So
Amazing.
I've enjoyed it. So I asked my daughter, I said, look, this is what I'm struggling with. I'm struggling with this feeling. And she took a moment, and ever in her infinite childhood wisdom, she turned around and she went, well, Keir Starmer's a dickhead and he runs a country. And I
Oh
went,
my gosh.
yep, that's fine.
Yep.
Right. Okay. I don't even
Yes.
need to worry anymore. Yep.
Yeah.
You're right. You bang on. So that
Perspective.
was, yeah. And
Perspective.
it's that sort of recapturing that childhood sort of, if I want to do it, I'm going to do it and just try it and see what happens. A lot of people struggle with, I think a lot of people struggle with that judgment factor of, yeah, but what if it doesn't work? That people are going to laugh at me, or people are going to revel in my failure. And I think a lot of people struggle and don't have that person or that voice internally that I have, which is that whisper of like, yeah, but what if it goes right?
Yeah, I relate to that so deeply. I think I have that. I'm very much I have such trust in myself through all the things I've experienced in life that have given me a certain level of resilience that I think, well, I'll actually be okay
Mm,
ultimately. So it does give me that ability to listen to that little whisper that says, go on then, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
So have a go, you know? And I really relate to that. And it does, if you can tune into that whisper and if you can remember that we actually are allowed to have a go. And the other thing I think is that what I've had to do personally is step away from looking too much at what other people are doing, especially in the same industry as me.
Mm,
And that I questioned that a lot about myself because I thought, well, I should be looking at who could I have as a mentor? Who can I learn from? Where are my people? Where are my peers? And actually, it became really disruptive to my mission because I started to go, oh, well, they're doing that. And I was so focused on what everyone else was doing that I had to actually step right back and shut the door and just stay in my lane and
mm.
trust myself and listen to the people I connect with and the people I work with and let their feedback be my kind of steer forwards. So I think children don't necessarily, especially when they're younger, have that exposure to what is going on out there in the world of social media, for example, necessarily. But also, if you go back generationally, when we heard of people doing amazing things, it would have been that one person either on the telly in black and white or in the newspaper, and it was a single person who'd done something phenomenal. Apart from that, you had your local heroes, if you
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
But that was kind of it. But it was the real people doing the real things that got focus. And
Yep.
they were inspirational. Whereas now, we don't even know what's real. You've got AI, and then you
Hmm.
have people out there in AI creating fake everything, as well as then the influencers just influencing. So how then can we compare? And we have this warped perspective of what success even is because
Yeah, well, that's the thing. For somebody who, I've got a 10-year-old. For somebody that's a parent, like,
mm,
and somebody that's like myself, and I look at the world as it is, and I'm thinking, you've got you've got. Don't get me wrong, you've got singers that are on there that make songs that I think are absolutely trash, but at least they're doing something. But then you've got people that are famous and nobody can put a pinpoint of like why are they famous?
Yeah.
There's no reason for them to be sort of as well known or as influential as they are.
Yeah.
And I don't care, they can all come for me. There's no substance there whatsoever. This it's like Mr. or Mrs. Corporate, and it's like we're a whore for any product. Just you tell us what to advertise, and we'll advertise it, and we'll get paid. And the lack of sort of that substance and that integrity is
Yeah.
it's going to be a very challenging thing for my daughter and for other kids to navigate,
I
to
agree.
understand where to go and who to put up on that pedestal and who to aim for as an idol and who to sort of model on. Um,
Yeah.
but I think the other thing, like you mentioned, that comparison element is especially with social media.
Yeah.
Um,
Hard.
you know, I I've managed to get that sort of almost third eye insight into when I see something, and I'll find myself watching it, and it'll be somebody talking to camera, and I'm thinking, it's all staged.
Yeah.
It's not true. Like, I've
Yeah.
done it. I can't do it. I've tried so often with the social media, and I know I can't sit there and talk to a camera when I'm in a room on my own. It's just not normal, which is why I like to have conversations with people. I couldn't do the whole sort of falseness and fakeness with it. Uh, and
Yeah. It's
and
difficult though, isn't it? Because I think we also have to be really real and say we can't build a platform without it,
mm,
right? So
it's the double-edged sword with it.
double-edged sword,
Yeah, big
double-edged
time.
sword. I know I need it, and I know in the infancy with which my work is that I hugely need to improve, explore, expand. It's finding a way, isn't it, to do it that remains true to the mission and the message and the voice that we want to put across, especially
Yes.
on a subject like grief, because people who are grieving will their bullshit radar is off the scale high.
Yeah.
So you are forced to show up exactly as you are, or it is not going to work in any way, shape, or form.
So what first sort of put you down the path of sort of, because it's not some I don't I don't suppose any child grows up thinking I want to work in sort of grief counselling.
Didn't.
No. So what was the sort of
Oh,
roadmap? What got you into this space?
okay, gosh. So I kind of divide my life up into three so far. I say so far because I love a pivot. I have had three careers. Counselling, grief counselling, and the grief work that I do is number three. My mum died when I was 21. And she died very suddenly. She was my world. We were best. It was just, she was all I had. My mum and dad split when I was very young. And although I had contact with my dad, it was infrequent. So it was really mum and I. And she died, like I said, very, very suddenly. And because the house, had loads of money left over on it, I lost the house that her and I had as well. So at that point, I was 21. I was in my first career. I was a professional dancer and singer. So I was in musical theatre, and which was the first great love of my life was dancing. And so at 21, at that time, I was actually living and working in musical theatre in Germany. So my mum died, and I got the call very late one night in Germany, flew back the next morning, and she died at 2 a.m. the following morning. So there was no time to say goodbye, no nothing. It was gone. And then 4 or 6 weeks later, the house was also sold. So that was the first really, really substantial rug pull of my life, I think. And sort of fast forward to answer your question, I went through an amazing career in musical theatre probably cut a little bit short because I didn't really recover
Mm.
after losing my mum and the house. I didn't go to therapy or counselling for 6 years, doing what everybody does, thinking they can keep going,
Yeah.
but really, you know, neck high in unhelpful behaviours, interesting life choices, and just doing all the self-destructive things we can do when we are broken, open, and hurting. But I did tick all the boxes I wanted to do, and I did have an amazing career. But at around 27, 28, I thought I need to just stop living out of a suitcase now and settle down. And so I walked into a retailer, no longer exists at the time, and I ended up then forging a like 15, 17-year career in retail cosmetics.
All
So
right.
um, that was sort of career number 2. Um, and then towards the end of that, I'd worked my way up to fairly mid-high level corporate with a huge cosmetics brand, and I had an incredible time, a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant time with them. But as a lot of people did through COVID, I thought, what am I doing here? I'm working 50, 60 hours a week. I'm driving up and down the country. It's lipstick. I'm craving a life that has a little bit more purpose.
Mm.
And so I thought, well, I've always been close to people, especially in cosmetic retail. You hear a lot about men and women in there, and how transformative that world of cosmetics can be for people. For example, if they're struggling with cancer and they've lost their eyebrows, it can be very deep.
Mm.
And I'd always really, really loved that. And so I thought, well, I'll do a little counselling course. And I was there on day one with my pencil case and my notebook, and I was that person. And I fell in love with it. And I left school at 16, and I was not academic at all. I got an E in maths,
Mhm.
and I did love English and language, and I still do, but not academic at all. Left school at 16. So going back to study again, I was like we were saying, I was like that childhood kind of like, I'm going to get a
And
new pencil case, and I'm
and
going to
it's
have
strange.
stationery.
I found that really, really and I thought about it recently, that when I was at school, I wasn't academic in the slightest. I've had this conversation yesterday, actually. I coasted through school. I passed everything. I was intelligent enough to pass everything. I never revised. I just coasted through it, sat at the back of the class, and I got 1A, 1B, and 8 Cs in my exams. So I passed everything.
Yeah.
But I spent that whole 5 years thinking I'm wasting my fucking time. I don't wanna be here. I'm learning physics. I don't like
Yeah.
physics. I don't want to do physics. Can I
Algebra.
well, I loved chemistry, so chemistry was one of my favorite subjects, and then, sport as well was the other one. If I could just do chemistry and sport, I would have been happy, but instead I'm sat doing geography.
Yeah.
I'm not
Hero.
interested in this.
Mm.
And English literature and English language I hated at school, but I've subsequently I read like probably what 20, 30 books a year.
Amazing.
And I think it's a different relationship with learning when you get to, like I
Yes.
said, like
Yeah.
30 odd year old, you kind
Yeah.
of I enjoy learning.
Yeah.
I read scientific papers for fun.
Yes.
Like
I
it's
Yeah.
not normal.
Yeah.
Um But I think part and parcel of that, and I pinpointed it yesterday by accident, is when I went from school to college,
Mm.
it was almost like, "What? I get to pick what I want to
Mm.
learn about now."
Mhm.
"Oh, right, okay, right, well, give me everything to do with sport. I want to learn
Yeah.
about, sports science. I want to learn about
Yes.
fitness and exercise, anatomy and physiology," and I learned everything I possibly could. So I think when you get to choose what you want and you get to, because not, don't get me wrong, not uh, uh, one of my favorite sayings is, judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree and it'll forever fail.
Correct. And I think there's a privilege in being able to learn as well, by the way. Like, I know
100%.
I'm very privileged to have been able to give myself the gift of the learning that I've had in the last 5 years. So
Mm.
it's not
So what
always easy, is it? But
No. Well, so with the counselling then,
Yeah. So
what
I
what
rocked up
where
and
does it was that like a was it just a counselling course, or was it a specific, like, grief counselling course, or was it
so I did my first 2, no, 3 years um in night school. So I did my day job, which was the fairly hefty 50, 60-hour job. And then twice a week of an evening, I went to college to study. And it is counselling at that point broadly.
Mhm.
And it was in-person centered, which stems from Carl Rogers. So that the core of that leans on to giving unconditional positive regard and the belief that everyone has the ability within them to self-actualize.
Mhm.
So that's very, very broad and loose, but that was my first 3 years. And then I got to the end of that and I was so in love with it, that I said to my tutor at the time, I want to keep going. I want to do the final 2 more years. Can I do that and continue my day job? And she said, absolutely not. Because are you mad? Because I'm going to have to go and get my placement, my clinical hours,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all of the stuff that comes with it. So I was very lucky at the time in some sort of personal support I got that enabled me to take a part-time job in retail,
Mhm.
which I do still love, and further my studies. And I just went for it and sacrificed savings I'd built up and just threw myself into the final 2 years where I was lucky to study it. It's called pluralistic. So we then build a toolkit of things like CBT, for example. So I have kind of this lovely mesh of the two learnings, if you like, that I bring to my practice. But it wasn't until it came to me choosing where I did my placement to get my clinical hours that I came across the incredible Trinity Hospice in Blackpool. And through my supervisor who recommended it to me, which is where she did her placement, I went for the interview and was accepted to do my clinical hours there. And I did those at the Linden Centre, which is pure bereavement, one-to-one and group counselling. And honestly, and sounds ridiculous, I didn't ever think about doing grief counselling
Wow.
until I got to placement. I walked in that door for my interview and I was like, I I got goosebumps. The atmosphere, the warmth, the love, the care, the quality of the establishment ethically, the care it took for the people. I was just like, I'm home. It still gives me goosebumps now to talk about it. And honestly, truthfully, I couldn't stop thinking about my mum.
Mm.
And to join a very long dot, if she hadn't have died, I wouldn't be where I am now with this ability to be able to sit with people who are in the depths of their own despair and sit with them.
I
And
understand. Yeah.
so and my very, very first client of my first clinical hours, where you're just terrified because
I
it's
can
real
imagine.
now.
Yeah, yeah.
This is real. Actually was someone who was only a little bit older than I was and had their mum had died. And so my first clinical hour, I was almost sat face to face with myself.
It's the synchronicities that happen like that. I always, rightly or wrongly, I always take them as signs that you're on the right path. You're
I
in
agree.
right arena, and when they start to happen, it's what people would call divine intervention in a sense. I think.
Yeah. And not
And
to be too woo-woo about it. It can't be any other thing for me. There are
no,
too many coincidences that led me to that moment that has taken me down the path further. It's just
I honestly
wild.
don't think it's too woo woo at all. I think I the way I explain sort of I use I use the word the universe
Mm,
generally, but in Christianity it's God, in Islam it's Allah, in Buddhism it's Buddha. It's all it is. It's just a different name for it. And I think the way I explain it as being real to my daughter,
Mhm.
because obviously she goes to a Church of England school
Mm.
and they do, Jesus and God and the whole sort of story on that side. The way I sort of explain it when her friends say that God isn't real or Jesus isn't real and this, that, the other, I'm like, well, she plays a lot of hockey. You've been in a sports club where you've trained for the first time and there might be 10 other girls there,
Mm.
and you'll know
Mm.
without speaking to any of them, I
Mm.
like her.
Mhm.
I like that one. And
Mhm.
or on the flip side, I don't like her. I don't like that one. I want to stay away from her. Without speaking to them, without understanding anything about them, because of that feeling that you get.
Oh, yeah.
That for me is what God, Allah, the universe. That's evidence of that being there. Is that sort of space in between, that
Mhm.
feeling, that intrinsic feeling. I've nearly died 3 times in my life. Like, so the first one was beyond my control. I had meningitis when I was a baby. I was
No.
in intensive care for 9 months. So it was like 50-50 whether I would live or
Yeah.
die.
Yeah.
Um, I've still got scars on my head at the back where they clipped stuff to me. Um, so that must have been horrific for my mum and my dad when I went through that. The second time was I was on a ski trip in with school in France, Les Alps. And at Les Alps, you get a train that takes you up to the summit of the mountain. It's like inside the mountain is this train. When we were skiing, you'd take um, turns to be at the front, and you'd go down in a big long line. And it was a bit of a whiteout, and I decided, I'll go at the front. I was skiing. It was only a green run, so it wasn't anything
Yeah.
sort of crazy. And something told me to stop, and every now and again you stop and wait for everybody to catch up, then you go again. And something just told me to stop at that moment. And as I stopped at that moment, I was going straight. I wasn't turning. I decided to stop. If I was going to go straight on, I would have been over a 2,000-foot drop. Um, and it obviously it's always in hindsight when you look back on things like that, you think, wow, like there was something that was telling me to stop at that point. There was nothing sort of um that influenced me. It was just something from internal.
Yeah.
Um and then I had a similar experience on a bike as well, on a push bike. And I think them when I've experienced stuff like that, I've always thought, right, well, it's almost it might sound a bit woo-woo, but it's part of a plan. There's something there that obviously I haven't fulfilled my purpose and I haven't fulfilled what I'm here to do. Therefore, I get a second go at it. So, or a third or a fourth go. And
Yeah.
I think when situations or when anybody's gone through that, and I think death is one of those things that they go through, um, that sort of belief or experience in, I suppose, supernatural is almost the right word, but that the otherworldly, it becomes stronger, and rightly so, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it can for a lot of people. But, conversely, I think it can go the other way.
mhm,
So in the hundreds of hours where I've sat with people, I have definitely sat opposite people who have the opposite feeling, where they may have been very strong in a Christian faith or any other faith or spiritual belief, and their pain is so great and their anguish and anger becomes so big for them. They question everything about them, including their faith.
mm,
Um, and then others I've sat opposite from have the experience where it strengthens it, or it's newly found.
mm,
And I think it's interesting that it can go sometimes either way. Um, Sometimes people who have been very, very Christian in their faith have very gently and almost with guilt or shame have revealed to me very quietly, almost, like, I don't even know if I believe in God anymore.
mm,
And so I think it can go either way.
mm. I
Really
I suppose it
interesting.
I've been lucky. I say lucky. I think I have been lucky, like, in terms of deaths, close family deaths, it's never been sort of sudden. It's never been I say sudden, 6 months was the most sudden from
Yeah,
diagnosis to
yeah.
death. But I think it's never been a phone call of like a car crash,
Mhm,
for instance, that I've
mhm,
been so lucky with that. And I I don't know how I would react in that sense that people when they get that shock call, because that must be from your perspective it's a different animal completely to sort of deal
yeah.
with.
I think grief I don't think I know grief is unique to every single person. I know that as much as there are commonalities, that I know that it's unique for every single person, but I the shock and the shock of a sudden death can leave people with a really a whole other set of things to overcome, and disbelief and anger and anguish and all of those things. They can come with other types of grief as well. But when it is a rug pull, um, that can trigger some really different kinds of reactions and emotions.
Mm.
Um, and you can be dealing with those for a very, very long time afterwards. And your trust in self and your trust in, like we're talking about, your trust in the universe can
Mhm.
become questioned because you say, well, why have you done this to me? Why have you taken that person? We don't know what that you
Yeah,
would
yeah.
think at the time, do we? But we, we say that, why have you taken that person? My mum was only 55.
Wow.
I'm getting closer to that age now, and I think she the older I get, the younger she was, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wow." And then you hear those questions, "Well, so and so's an absolute arsehole and they're still alive."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I've been through it. So, when my granddad, he had three major strokes,
Mm,
and I think it was 1 or 2 years prior to that, one of my friends had a major stroke, and it was the sort of the aftermath of each event was the way my granddad was programmed. He was in the RAF, he was in the fire service for 20 odd years. So, he was a stiff upper lip, get
yep,
on with it,
yep,
just knuckle down. Oh, your hand's falling off. Right, well, you got another one. You're all
yes.
right. It's that sort of
Children of
mentality.
that generation, they do not make them like that anymore.
Oh, God. Well, so the first stroke he had, which was before all his heart problems, he 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 had a long galley kitchen, which was about I'd say 11 foot long,
Yeah,
and the cooker is at one end, and the phone is on the other end. And he collapsed at the cooker end and used his shoulders to crawl and dial 999 with his with his nose on the phone. I think he was 80 odd at the time. He's like really tough as
precious.
old boots,
Yeah,
made out of different stuff.
yeah,
So he had these three major strokes. When I went to see him, this was on the Monday. I thought, that's it. He's not going to last the week. He was white as a sheet, fetal position, non-responsive. I went on Wednesday, and that was when he was sat up next to his bed, cracking jokes and right as rain, which was really, really strange. Um, and he recovered really, really well after that. Then my friend who went through it went down the route of, "Oh, woe is me. And why has this happened to me? Why has it not happened to this person or this person?"
yeah,
And they deteriorated massively to the point where they weren't the person they used to be. They didn't really recover properly.
yeah.
And I've always looked at it and thought, I don't know. It's obviously it's hard to sort of put yourself into that situation, but I don't know which scenario I would be in or which camp I would be in.
If it was you mean?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it like with Carl. So Carl, who was my first ever guest on the podcast, it would have been quite easy after he went through a traumatic brain injury, and he made an attempt on his own life, and then found running. and running was his therapy. Running was the thing where it's like, oh, amazing. He did his first ultra marathon, which was like 46 miles, I think. Don't text me if I got that wrong, Carl. And then 2 days later, he had a stroke. And it's like, I look at that and think he's been through all that trauma, found something that he loves, and then this has happened again. And it must be so sort of disheartening to the point of like, right, well, yeah, I'm giving up. I can't be bothered. Um, but like I said, like obviously, I'm so happy he didn't,
Yeah.
because he's now running sort of, what's he done, 100 miles and 200 miles and yeah, crazy distances. Um, but how do you find, obviously, because every experience of grief is different, every bereavement is different in its own way, because of the nature of relationships with people.
Yes.
How
Yeah.
do you navigate that? Because it must be not the hardest in terms of difficulty, but it must be the hardest part of the job, understanding where to go with this person. Did they hate this person? Did they have unfinished business with this person?
Yeah.
That's why they're so angry, or are they
Yeah.
angry at everybody else because everybody else is alive and this person isn't? And
You see it all, and navigating it becomes this experience of where you arrive in front of the person. And I actually really love this part. And you're kind of, your whole body and your whole soul and your whole mind is just open.
mm,
And you wait to hold what they will give you, which is the greatest honor of my life. You have to build trust, and it does take time. And that's where we work really hard as counselors to be with the person as they are and build that relationship of trust that gives them the space to give you what they need and want and can give you. But you arrive at it, or I do, with this it feels like my whole body and soul and mind is just open. And you hear it all. You hear the anger, you hear the fear, you hear all of the frustration, you hear all of the disbelief of it. And I think if I look back overarchingly, there's a word that was coming up when you were speaking, which is resilience. And I have found that where people have a baseline level of resilience or not can determine how well they are in grief.
mm.
And that might sound really broad, and I don't mean it to be that. And of course, it isn't for everyone. But resilience, I feel, plays a really big part in how well we weather our grief. And some people who have had, perhaps I'd call it like a hard paper round. You know what I mean?
Funny that people tell me I look like I've had an uphill paper round.
I definitely look like that first. But people who have had a hard paper round can often have a baseline level of resilience that holds them
Mm,
through it. And then the other piece that you navigate is what they've been taught about themselves
yeah,
as
yeah.
children, and what have they been taught about how well they can cope with things, and how their relationship was with the person that died, but also how their relationships are with their parents or their siblings, or what were they taught early on about relationships and life, and were they allowed to cry, or were they told, no, get up? You know, if they fell over, was it get up, you're all right, you've got
Mhm,
another knee, or don't cry, or boys don't cry, or don't cry like a girl, or all of these cliches and stereotypes. It's the epigenetics of who we are. It's the environment we've come from and the learned behaviors that were instilled in us.
mm.
All of the sum of that actually can play a part in how we grieve. And it's for me then to find a way to meet that person with as much empathy and kindness and compassion and non-judgment as I can, so that they have the right environment and space to really understand themselves, both where they've come from, which can determine how well they are weathering their pain.
It's really interesting, and I've kind of explained. I have a joke quite often with most of my therapists. It's like, you don't do anything. You sit there, and I do all the work, and I figure it all out. You just kind of hold the space, and all the answers come from me. So what are you doing? Um,
You know what?
and it,
I really want to touch on that point. I really want to touch on that because I was thinking a lot about this last night, about the nuance of therapy and counselling, and how it can feel like the person comes to you and goes, "Well, come on then, fix
yeah,
it. What do I do? I want to feel better." And of course you do. You desperately don't want to be in pain anymore. We're
yeah.
biologically hardwired to survive. So every atom in our body is going, "Stop it, stop it. How do I stop it? How do I stop it?" So you arrive at us and you go, "Well, go on then. What are you going to do?"
Yeah,
And then the nuance and the skill and that very gentle tweaking and moving with the
the subtle prod.
subtlety, the
Yeah, that
subtle prod
yeah.
is the work that you may feel we don't do, and
Oh,
it
I
should
know for a
feel like
fact
your
it.
work.
Yeah, I know for a fact that I like, I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning her name, but Imogen, who was my EMDR therapist, like,
Mm,
she was so good. And EMDR is slightly
mm.
different because they
Yes.
do a lot of work, to be fair.
Yes,
So for
this is
those that don't know,
mm,
EMDR is, I'm gonna get this wrong.
eye
It's
movement, rapid.
yeah, so it's all about, um following a target or a light or a pen or a hand with your eyes,
Yeah.
and it's all about reprogramming your memories of you're attaching part of your identity to this memory outcome, and you're changing that attachment.
Yeah, it
um
mimics that REM sleep that we
yeah,
have, which
and
allows you to process the memories.
it worked,
Mm.
like a dream. It's
Yeah, I've only heard
fantastic.
good things.
But yeah, so when Imogen had, like, just with the right question at the
Mm,
right time, at the
mm.
right point of, like, and then it's almost then like a waterfall of, like, "Oh, shit, that's why I do this, and that's why I behave this way, and that's why that's sort of been wrong for the last 10 years, is
Yeah,
because of this moment."
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think it's I tell everybody, like, I lived in the States for a time, and most people in the States go to therapy weekly.
I know.
It's a marriage therapy, family therapy, single whatever it is, and it's sort of just the done thing. Whereas in this country, I think it's getting better,
Agree.
but I really still feel like there's that taboo there of, like, "Oh, yeah, well, still experience it. Oh, I've got my therapy tonight. Oh, why? What's wrong? Is everything
Yeah.
okay?"
Yeah, there's so
Yeah,
much shame attached to it
yeah,
still. Uh,
everything's fine. Like, but
yeah.
if this helps me be the best version of myself, why wouldn't I continue to do it?
There
It's a
was,
thing.
a quote I read which really stuck with me, and I speak about it a lot, where it said that, grief and grief trauma, that experience can be the equivalent of a car crash. Well, you wouldn't have a car crash where you might have broken your arm and go, "Oh, it's all right, I'll just go home now." Well, you can't you so we've forgotten really, haven't we, that that you can have a broken arm, but it just you can't see it
Yeah, I think
emotionally.
and that comes to sort of my next point of, like, through society's eyes,
Mm,
there's a few things that aren't spoken about.
mm,
Fair few things actually, but a few things that should be spoken about more. And I think death,
mhm.
and I look at it as though there was a documentary recently. I say recently, last few years ago, about blue zones
Yes,
in the world, and it's a subject that absolutely fascinates me.
same.
My granddad's 94. My grandmother-in-law is 98.
Mhm.
She's from Milan.
Yeah.
so Mediterranean blood and all
Mm,
that,
lovely.
and she's sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
She's unbelievable. And I look at it and I think, I've always said I wanna make 100. I want
Mhm.
that century.
Mhm.
That's what I want. Whether I get it or not is a different thing, but I've always found it how they can identify. I think there's about 8 blue zones across the planet where they've got the most centurions per capita,
Mm.
and the one that fascinates me most out of all them 8 zones is Okinawa in Japan. And one of the biggest things that they attribute the life, expectancy there for is the community element
Yes.
of, like, when somebody's ill or poorly or can't do stuff, the community step in
Correct.
to do the bits that they need. So it's almost like they work as one,
Yeah.
and I find it. I know from growing up 80s, 90s, there
Yeah.
used to be that feeling in this
Yes.
country.
Yep.
I know my nana used to go to the shops and leave her doors open in a house with the fly strips. That was it.
Yes. We used to go out to play, you just come home when it got dark, or you come home when you were
Yes,
hungry.
and I think that through there'll be multitudes of factors that are sort of attributed to it, but things like mainstream media and the fear mongering, and you had experiences like COVID and all that go on that scaremonger people to the point where we don't. I mean, I know for a fact. I know my neighbors to look at them,
Yeah.
but I don't really know them.
Did. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. If, for instance, if one of them passed away, I wouldn't be overly upset. I'd be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's a shame," but there wouldn't be that
Yeah.
connection there, which
No.
is really surreal. You live, you know,
I
if
know.
you live in a terraced house, you can sleep like less than 10 meters away from this person through a
Literally.
wall, and you've got no relationship with them whatsoever.
And community is, for me, it's one of the biggest underpinning elements of everything I'm trying to do.
Mm,
And the beauty, I call it the beauty in the sharedness of community that I see in grief counselling and the grief counselling groups that I run. The beauty in that sharedness and the level of healing that happens when you create a community is it's unparalleled,
mm,
and it's beautiful and critical, and I'm all for it. And I think if we could have more community in our lives in general, I think the world would be a better place. And I think I feel like I'm seeing a little bit more now where people are even generationally starting to live more closely, so that you've got grandmas with their great grandchildren, and that shared wisdom and the sharedness again, it is present and is enriching. I
mm.
think there's so much to get from community, but I'm a huge advocate, and it's a real leading pathway for me. And what I'm doing is to run these grief counseling groups, because the magic when people get together and they build that relationship and they build that community feeling, and they begin to share and help and talk to each other, and they realize we're all the same.
Yeah.
We're all the same. We're all trying to do the same day to day, whether we're grieving or not, or especially when we're grieving, we're in the depth of grief. But you've got to look at it in the real life grief terms. You can be
Mhm.
deeply grieving and you've still got to go to work. You've still got to feed your kids. You've still got to pay the bills. And you lost your granddad, what, two weeks
2
ago?
weeks. Yeah, 2
You're
weeks. Yeah.
recording this podcast with me. So, we it's that cruel and strange juxtaposition of
Mhm.
grieving and life continuing, which can feel very strange and unfair. But when you bring that to a group and community setting, the healing is transformational.
Yeah, I think that was my other point in terms of, and I don't know whether you agree with this. I know we spoke about it before we started recording, but the whole I always struggle with um, people that say they've got to get through grief. I need to get through. Let me grieve and I'll get through it. A- And through my experience, obviously, what's it been now? 20 years or so. God, I should know that. But yeah, I think it's about 20 years since my nana passed away, since my first sort of exposure to proper grief. And it's not gone away. It won't go away. It will never go away till the day I die. It's just my relationship with it has completely evolved from something that's sad to whenever I talk about her, I think I wouldn't have been able to, I'd say probably what, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to talk about her because it'd be like, no, because if I talk about her, I would break. I
Yeah.
can't do it. Whereas now, because of the work that I've done, whenever I have a thought about her or whether, a thought about my granddad or whoever, um, I smile. It makes me happy because it's like, oh, they're still here. They're still around. It's not like they've been forgotten and lost to time. They're still here.
There's an
Um,
amazing professor. He is called Robert Niemeyer, and he does some incredible work on. He calls it meaning making, and which is making sense of the death and the grief, but also does some brilliant work on what I think you're speaking on right now, which is called continuation.
mm,
And it can sound like a really strange concept to wrap your head around, but it's how we continue the relationship with the person who's died. And people can look at you when you first start talking about like that. Well, what? They've died.
yeah,
Like, what are you going on about? And
yeah,
yes, it's true, they have, but you we can find a continuing of that relationship. And like you say, one can hope that eventually you arrive at that point where a memory of them does make you smile. And
mm,
that is, in essence, continuation. It's just there is a journey to get to that. But
mm.
it is a real thing. It is how we continue to love the person and continue to have a relationship with them, even though they're not physically here.
Yeah, there's Andrew Garfield. I think he lost his mother, and he was speaking about it on, I can't remember whatever talk show it was, and he mentioned that the grief is basically the expression of all the love that you didn't get to show them whilst they were still here. And I find that it's such a comforting
Yeah.
notion
Yep.
that that even if my granddad lived to 150,
Mhm.
I'd still feel the same. I'd still feel like I didn't have enough time with him. I didn't get to say everything that I wanted to say. But it's one of those where I said what I said. I can't change. I've got to come to terms with I did what I did. I said what I said. I spent what I spent with him, and it couldn't have been done any other way than what it's been done.
Do sometimes say not to like diminish it, but sometimes I say big love is big grief.
Mm.
Big love equals big grief. And honestly, quite rightly so.
Yeah.
And that can feel very strange, but I feel like I've seen that it is like that, where I've sat opposite people who, might have lost their husband and they were married for 60, 70 years.
Mm.
And that lifetime of loving the same human, big love is big grief.
And then even on the flip side of, I got to spend not 94 years, that would be ridiculous. I got to spend 38 years with my granddad.
Took well.
Yeah, I know. So I got to spend 38 years with him.
Mm,
And obviously you have that time to cultivate that relationship. I know him inside out, he knows me inside out, and we know it. Like one of my favorite memories of him was when I used to get ready for school. He used to love watching Tom and Jerry, the cartoon, and he would laugh more than I would laugh. And this was when he was like, 60, 70-year
he
old.
was a Peter Pan.
Oh, 100%.
Uh,
Like hands like shovels, and he'd give you big bear hugs and stuff, but like softy and like just loved stupid stuff at heart. So I had that time to cultivate that big love that you mentioned, but I've also gone through a part where me and my ex-wife, we had a miscarriage.
mm,
I didn't have that time to
yeah,
cultivate that
no,
relationship. I wasn't even sort of a
yeah,
baby or a being or anything.
yeah,
How now that it is different again, obviously,
very,
but
yeah.
I suppose I've got uh, a friend that's gone through that recently.
Mm.
Um, and the advice that I can give or the help that I can give is just to, and what I said to him was just sit with it. Don't don't judge yourself on, oh, I haven't done this or I haven't done that. Just sit with it and be comfortable with it. If you want to cry, cry. If you want to scream, scream. If you want to shout, punch, whatever, do it. But don't try and bury it. Don't try and get
No,
away from it,
no.
because it will change. If you try and get away from it, and you might be trying for the next 60 years, it'll
Yeah.
catch up with you at some point.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
but how do you,
Yeah.
have you come across that?
Yeah, yeah, I have, and thank you for sharing that. I think on that, there's two things that I've seen and witnessed is that grief can be a thief.
Mm.
It's a thief sometimes. It takes the possibilities, it takes future, it takes plans, it takes um things that you wished for, it can take your hopes and dreams. And I think in those moments, through things like miscarriage, or when people perhaps have multiple IVFs and then have to come to terms with the fact that they're not going to have children, I think in those moments, grief is a thief and it robs you of your hopes and dreams.
It's
And I think that can be devastating.
it's yeah, because it's funny, and I've never really thought about it until speaking to you of, like you said, if somebody's gone through IVF and they've got to realize that,
Mm.
it's not going to happen.
Mm.
Nobody's nobody's died, but there is a loss, and it's a loss of a life that you had in your head that's no
Correct.
longer there anymore.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting, it's phenomenally interesting. I haven't read too much into it, and I'm pretty sure there'll be more studies that go on about it. But did you see about the girl that was in a 3-week coma recently?
Yes.
Now, how, like, so for those that don't know and haven't seen it, this girl was in a coma for 3 weeks, and whilst in this coma, she got married, she had a job, she had a life, and she gave birth to triplets. And she's then woken from this coma
Yeah.
with no marriage, no partner, no triplets, and even though obviously it wasn't real, it didn't actually physically happen,
Yeah.
the feelings,
Yeah.
like, must be, I mean, I couldn't. It's probably my biggest fear. So with
Mm.
Esme,
Yeah.
like, my daughter, it's a constant sort of there of like, I'm going before she does. She better not do anything fucking stupid. Um, but I think for any parent, that's a constant sort of worry. You can't. You just got to learn to be with, rather than sort of try and navigate out of.
Yeah.
But for somebody like that, it shows how complicated, like you say, grief is, in a sense. It's not sort of a one size fits all pair of gloves. It's multifaceted with things that are real, things that aren't real, things that actually haven't happened, but like pet grief, like you mentioned at the start. That's I've been through that. That is horrible.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst things I've dealt with. Where um, Marley was my dog, and he's downstairs. His ashes are downstairs, and like, I suppose it was all at the same time. I've got something in my eye. I'm not crying.
It's okay if you were.
um, but I think at the time when Marley went, it was my nana. I'd separated from my long term girlfriend at the time, and then 2 weeks after that, that was when Marley was put to sleep as well. So it was like a triple whammy of uh, different types of grief all the way. And it was sort of like, I think that was part and parcel of why I went, yeah, not dealing with that. Go away. Go away for 10
Yes.
years and I'll deal with it later.
Yeah, and we would, because like I said, biologically we're hardwired to survive. Our body, thank God, is at all times during our day is trying to keep us alive. And what
Mm,
we've just forgotten that that's the same emotionally as it is for us physically, that if something horrendous happens, our instinct will be to go, "Oh, I'm all right." We don't want to feel it. But
Mm.
to your point before, it is in the moments when we can be brave enough to allow it. And I love the word allow. We've got to allow it. We've got to sit in the mud, get right down and sit in it. And when you can do that, that is when you can begin to find your way into a space of forwardness.
Mm.
But
It's
you have to allow it, and that can be terrifying. And we've weirdly had that conversation last night actually in group about the fear that can come up of, what if I allow myself to feel it so much I lose my mind?
yeah.
I'm gonna lose my damn mind if I really sit in the mud and I really feel it. So
it's
it's a
it's
tightrope.
also not judging yourself on what feelings you feel. So like
Yeah.
at the beginning, I feel differently about this death than I have any other. And then if I hadn't have done the work that I'd already done, I know I'd be sat there thinking, well, you're a horrible person. Why did you not love him as much as everybody else? What's wrong with you? Whereas in essence, I understand the reason why I feel differently is because of the work I've done in between that death and this death. And I understand death in a different way. Um, but I think that that sort of relationship with yourself, I've spoken about this before, and there's a big thing, you mentioned it already, about AI at the minute,
Yeah,
and the limits and the um, pitfalls and the drawbacks. But obviously, there's also the positives. And
definitely.
I think one of the biggest faux pas that the Western world are making is they're not teaching it in schools. They're not teaching how to use it properly in schools because it's such a good tool for somebody like me who's 100 miles a minute and my head's firing at several different ideas. As you probably tell with this conversation, I go down a pathway and then I forget to come back to the original point. And then a couple of my friends that listen go like, you never finish your point. You make a good point and then you go off on one and then you don't come back to it. I said, well, yeah, but it keeps you listening, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so, but I think the big thing that I've taken from my journey with AI, and there's, all the different ones that you can use. It's helped me, even though I think I had a pretty decent relationship with myself and I understood myself. It's helped me develop that more, like, because I keep a journal with the AI and I ask for sort of it. It acts as almost like a mirror, and it says, "Oh, you've said X, Y, and Z. This is what I'm getting from it." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I get that," or I can disagree with it. And it's helped me over the last 12 months cultivate such a better relationship with myself. And I think there was something the other day that I was reading where people talk about the signs of intelligence, like what is sort of genius level intelligence. Part of it was to think about your own process of thinking. That was sort of the highest echelon of intelligence, is like, why do I think that way? Why
Yes.
I'm analyzing myself of, why am I feeling this way? Well, that's because this has happened and this has happened and that's happened.
Mhm.
And I think that way because of X, Y, and Z. And that self analysis. And I think AI is such a good tool to use to do that. But not many people know how.
I agree. It's obviously hot topic in most industries at the moment, and especially in ours, because people are using it for ways like you've just spoken about, for counselling, for many, many different things. And I think for me, ultimately, I come back to the point of, who am I to tell somebody how they help themselves?
Mm.
If a person who is suffering for whatever reason finds help, support, comfort, knowledge, better understanding of themselves through an AI, whatever bot that may be, great.
Mm.
I do also believe that where we see an increase in AI and perhaps a disconnect from humanity in one sense, that we will equally see a need for human connection and community. And
Yes.
I just, rightly or wrongly, naively or not, fundamentally believe that they will grow at equal rate.
I think,
It's because of the yin and yang of life.
well, that's it. And I think the big thing is, and this is coming from personal experience, AI can't be used. ac- I don't believe AI can be used accurately or effectively as a therapy tool. I don't think it's not there yet for me. I think the complexities and nuances of human emotion and behavior, an AI program can't discern that properly. However, so I use it as sort of a daily journal and a daily check-in, and it always follows the same format of, I feel 6.5 out of 10 today. Um, I always do 3 good things or 3 positive things, 3 negative things, and 3 things that I'm looking forward to. So I always start it the sort of the same way. And then throughout the day, what I'll do is I'll just, and through audio, I'll just put in, oh, just finished my first. So after this, I'll go on. I'll be just finished my episode with Lucy. Really, really good. I thought this went well. I think I didn't manage to get round to speaking about X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the day, I kind of have a roundup of
Mm,
understanding, oh, I thought I didn't actually do much today, but looking at this, I've done so much more than what I thought. And it's understanding. I understand that I am my own worst enemy half the time. I do too much, or I do too much believing that I'm doing not enough.
mm.
And flip from one project to another project to this project to that project, when in essence I then have 5 things that are 80% done rather than 3 things that are 100% done and 2 things that are 30% done, which would be the better way to do it.
Okay.
So it's helped me understand myself in a way that only me could do. I
Yes.
couldn't get that through therapy.
Yes.
But I think then when you're dealing with external factors of how to deal with, say, a relationship, for instance,
Yeah.
AI is not the way to, is not the way to go.
I
100%.
I do. I stand to it, and I think if I do love AI. I'm fascinated by it. I do use it. I think everybody does now. I think
Mhm.
we can say that now, can't we?
Yeah, yeah, pretty
And
much.
we can very much see when people are using it, more or less. Um, Now I think we're getting better at seeing it
Mhm,
and integrating it. And like I said, who am I uh, to say people shouldn't use it because da, 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 da. If it's helping you, great. But I do agree with you. I think there is, and I do think community is really important. And I do think there is human nuance and subtlety that it isn't there yet with. And that is where that real human connection comes into play, and where I'm seeing that beautiful sharedness in people coming together, even in the setting of a group counselling in grief, that real human messiness where it isn't a perfect answer. It isn't going to get you where you need to be in 2 seconds. You've actually got to go around the houses a little bit, and you've actually got to get it a little bit wrong. And we do that as therapists. We have to really seek to understand the person. We should try to never assume we think we know what they're thinking. So it's
mhm.
all of the beauty in that messy discovery that has that lovely human connection, and that is in contrast to the clinical you've arrived that you get with
Mhm.
AI, which is good in a fast-paced life. And like you say, I'm busy,
Yeah,
I've got this on, I just want to vent, I want to know, and I want an answer. Great.
yeah.
You don't always have time to sit with somebody for an hour or 45 minutes and messily unpick something. Sometimes we haven't got the capacity for that mentally or logistically. So I think there's place for it all, and I don't think we should, in the therapy world specifically, I don't think we should be saying it's no good, because I don't think that's truthful.
No, and this is, so that's always been my, my thought process with a lot of things. So, like, there's a big, massive thing about phones in schools at the minute.
Mm.
Um, and don't get me wrong, I understand. I almost playing devil's advocate. I understand from teachers' perspectives and so on and so forth. But you've opened the bottle. The genie ain't going back in.
It's here now.
So you're gonna have to evolve some way.
Yes.
So, and the analogy that I always use is right. So if I went back in time to 1980
Mhm.
and I went to any classroom or any school in the country and said, "Listen, I've got this device that you can give to every kid, and what it's going to do, it's going to grab their attention span for hours, and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to shout at them. You don't have to do anything, but it'll grab their attention span, and you can teach them anything you want through it."
Yes.
Most teachers would go, "Where do I sign?"
Where do I sign? Yeah.
Whereas now it's like y they're not integrating it. If you integrated it into education, into mainstream education, like, one of the things my daughter used to love, like, she's you get a bit old now, but was, it's called TT Rockstars, which is about
Okay.
times table rock stars,
Okay.
and they created a full sort of app where you get points and you can buy clothes for your avatar and this, that.
Yeah.
She loved it.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, kids at 16 aren't gonna be interested in that, but it's a really good way of integrating this technology into learning, which that's where I learn most of, that's where I read scientific papers. It's where I
Mm.
listen to all my
Yeah.
audible books.
Yeah.
And it's like, why wouldn't you want to use that amazing tool in educating the next generation of kids? Like, it just doesn't make sense. There's sort of a disconnect there for me.
Yeah. Totally
And
agree.
that integration, like you said, I think
Yeah.
is lacking.
Yeah. I see
Um,
it. I see it. I see it a lot in the counselling world. There's a real uproar about it and a real um like it was almost like the industry felt under attack, and
yeah.
I just didn't feel that way about it because I just didn't feel like I had any right to tell anyone how they got them help for themselves, and that there is a place for everything. We don't, we have various different methods of therapy and counseling: CBT, EMDR, person-centered, pluralistic, talking therapy, walking therapy, equine therapy. I mean, you can
Yeah,
go on
yeah,
and
yeah,
on
yeah.
and on. It's for me, it just felt like another integration of a way that people can access support. So I think we just weren't very prepared for it. And I
Mm.
don't think we were ready for the speed with which it arrived to us. Um, and therefore we didn't quite know how to embrace it.
I th
Um,
It is, and I think that sort of goes that sort of resistance, it's what we were speaking about before, was the sort of gatekeeping element of
mhm.
I've been, I didn't like CBT therapy,
Yeah,
uh, mainly because of, I think, my makeup and my build-up is like, I'd get to the end of a session and it'd be like, "Right, so we've talked about all the shit things that are going on. What's the solution?"
yeah,
And there was no sort of like it wasn't very solution focused. It was just like, "Let's talk about how you're feeling, and then, right, see you next week." And it's like, "All right, so I've just unpacked all these massive emotions,
yeah.
and now I've just got to deal with this for a week until I can speak to you again."
Oh. I'm
So
I'm I'm cringing at that you've had that experience. I'm sorry that, and I honestly, I nobody should ever feel like that after any session
Mm.
of therapy. Like, that's a shame that that happened, and
Yeah, well, it's happened. I've tried it twice as well, and it's happened both times. So I don't know whether it's just
CBT
I.
can feel very like, very clinical in the sense, and almost like sometimes you get homework to do, and that can't it isn't necessarily helpful, but I think it has a place,
Mm.
and it's good that we have varying models to try. I think perhaps there's a huge education piece that needs to happen in our country, especially around counseling and therapy, and what it is and what it entails, and what options are there available. Why might I need each one?
That options thing is a big, because I know I know CBT's helped people that I
Mm,
know.
mm,
I know they've rave about it, which is,
yeah,
well, one of the reasons why I started it again after the first time I tried
yeah.
it, and it was just, yeah, it was just like, "Oh, no, this hasn't
No,
changed. It's the
but
same.
it's
I
like
don't wanna do
finding
this."
the right counselor. I say to every
Exactly.
single client, come and spend some time with me. If it's not the one, it's not the one. It has to be right for you. And I always say, It's like trying to find the perfect little black dress or the perfect pair of trainers. You've got
Mm.
to try a few pairs on before you find the ones you want to buy. And
That
it is like that
100%.
in counselling. It has to be, because if you don't have that connect, if you don't have that ultimate feeling of I can actually tell this person the things I want to say that I'm not saying to anybody else, it's not going to happen,
No. Well,
regardless of modality.
I remember, so I'm sure, I know she won't mind me saying it. So I had the first discovery call with Kathleen,
Mm.
and I remember coming off, it was 30 minutes. I remember coming off that call fizzing. Literally, my skin was like on fire. I felt like, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, and it proves, I've worked with her for 5+ years.
Yeah.
Um, and through some of the really difficult moments in my life as well. And it just, it's almost like that one constant of like, all right, well, yeah, I get to speak to Kathleen about it, and so on and so forth. It was fantastic. But I think that, like you said, like we were saying, that gatekeeping element of, um, we said before, so you mentioned, the, pay what you can, which is part and parcel of one of your USPs with
Yeah.
your,
I
grief studio.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I know I mentioned to you, Nico, that I am gonna get him on the podcast at some point, but he's so goddamn busy. Um, but he does open-ended sessions, so
Yes.
it's not pay what you can, but it's like, right, well, if this bit's gonna take 4.5 hours, guess what? We're gonna be here 4.5 hours.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I think that's part and parcel sometimes with what I've experienced with certain therapists is you pay your 80, 90, £100 for the hour, and on the hour it's like, see you next week.
Yeah.
Even though I could be halfway through what would in essence be a breakthrough, it's like,
Mm.
right, okay, time's up, see you next week. Bye bye.
Mm.
And I don't get me wrong, I get it. People need to earn money and they've got clients and they've got appointments. I just find it the sort of, I put words to it before, the self-help industrial complex
Mm.
of if you want peace and if you want, tranquility, then it's going to cost you 5.99.99, and it's
Yeah. It's so I I want to disrupt from the point of access. So yes, I have one-to-one private practice clients, but it was deeply important to me. And actually, I lead with group counselling in the
it
community.
helps. I get so
And
much out of group
oh,
sessions. It's brilliant.
and it has to be for me. I had to make this model pay what you can, because you I wanted to try and remove some of these blockers to access. One of the biggest ones is the financial blocker, because I mean, I'm not charging that for single sessions, but you can pay 80, 90, over £100. Quite frankly, who can afford that?
No,
It's an
it's
at a time when
unsustainable.
it's unsustainable. And, you said before, you mentioned about how you found Kathleen to be your one constant. Well, that's what I wish everybody had the ability to find, whether it is group or that one person, that they have a place they can consistently go to that anchors them
Mm.
for the rest of, so they can go out and be themselves in their life. But if you don't start to find a way to remove some of the blockers, people just, it's unaccessible and it's unattainable, and it starts to feel hierarchical and elitist and
Mm.
all of those things. And so as long as I can sustain it, and I've been very lucky to find local community venues that charge very little per hour, because that's the other battle as
Yeah,
a
yeah.
counsellor is, you want to rent a space, then, it's hard to find great spaces. But I've been very lucky locally to find community centres, which speaks really to what I want to do anyway, where I'm not paying as much per hour, and it allows me to keep it pay what you can.
Mm.
Um, it's just any way to find those blockers and
Yeah.
get rid of them, so that people can get what they need when they need it.
Yeah, I've been like, it's I mentioned before, like, I'm probably I'd say 90%. I'm probably at 90% of writing a book at the minute. I've got 10% to do, but the 10% is been on the cards for the past 4 months. I haven't looked at it because I need to come away from it to
Mm,
read it with fresh eyes and
yes.
then format it properly. But there's about 2 chapters in it which go I took part in, the Matthew McConaughey seminar that he did. Was it Get Busy Living?
Mhm.
Something along those lines. And it was just after his release of Green Lights,
Green
which is
light.
his
Yep.
book, which is a phenomenal book. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was such a good concept,
Yep.
and I've taken some concepts from that book and employed them in my own life. But on that seminar, it was good. It was all online. It was really interesting. There was some really good nuggets of information. Then it got to the fucking sales pitch.
Oh god.
And it's just, for me, it just ruins it ruins what I know there was value. I'm okay because I know there was value there, and I know there's things that I right, well, I'll take that and I'm gonna use that and I'm gonna use that, but the rest of it you can keep. But a lot of people, and this has always been my thought process. Tony Robbins, don't get me wrong, I think some of his lessons and some of his lectures and his speeches really, really good to take into your own life. The one that he talks about, if you're driving in a car and you're constantly thinking, "Don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall," all you're going to see is the wall.
Mhm.
Whereas if you concentrate on make that corner, the likelihood is you're going to make the corner. And I really like that sort of analogy.
Yeah.
But that I can't get on board with somebody like that. It's almost cultist to the point of, I have all the answers. If you want all the answers that I clearly have,
Yeah.
then it's gonna cost you X amount of money. And
Yeah.
if you and it
That
almost
becomes a power thing, and then it becomes a marketing funnel.
yes.
And that's
And
when
that
you can end up feeling like you've just walked into the funnel and you're being
yeah,
marketed to.
yes.
Yeah.
And it frustrate like, I like another one is Jay Shetty. I love Jay Shetty. I've read all his books. I think he's phenomenal. But then it then becomes sort of I don't yeah, and I don't think he's doing it on purpose. I think it's just the nature of society that puts these people up on a pedestal, and then corporations get involved,
Yeah.
and then it becomes a marketable thing that they make millions and millions and millions of dollars from.
There's 2 things for me where I always come back to. Um, and one is Richard Branson, and he wrote in one of his books, "First you build your people, then you build your business."
Hmm.
So it's having people at the heart of what you do, and that's always stayed with me. And the second thing, love him or hate him, Stephen Bartlett said, if you can focus on serving people
Hmm.
and the servitude, so the service, how can I help you? If you can sit with that as the basis to your mission, then operate from there. What
Yeah.
comes from that comes from that. And I think that's a little bit what you were leaning into, really, where you were saying,
Yeah.
I'm just going to do what I love and it'll happen. And I very much am trying to operate from a point of service. I have a skill, I have a passion and a gift. I can go out into the world and share it for the benefit of others. And I do think if you can, you should, in whatever
Yes.
capacity.
Yeah, yeah.
If you can, you should. So I try to operate from service. And if all being well, I can grow and grow and grow this, great. But I will always try to operate from service.
Hmm. I think it is I think what you're doing is admirable, and I think it's one of the big things that I can only speak as this country, but I think we need to start talking a hell of a lot more about death and the place of death within our society, and every sort of thing that comes with it. Um, because ultimately, I give this lesson to my daughter regularly. It's like, it's the one common denominator, regardless of however you live your life. You could be
Yeah,
a serial killer, you
yeah,
could be a philanthropist, you
yeah,
could be a clown in a circus. Guess what? All three of them people have in common is they're
yeah,
all going to die.
yeah, correct. And we've just got to get that message, the message of that out there, and find ways to normalize
Mm,
death, dying, and speaking about it. And I think it's going to start from very young. I know there's a lot more work being done on educating in schools on death and dying and grief, which is brilliant to see. Um, but any way that we can be out there talking about it, normalizing it. I mean,
mm.
I dream of having the grief studio on the high street, so you walk past your shops and there may be the grief studio where you can just walk in and
Yeah.
it's okay. And you can experience all the things that come with that. You might want to pick up something to read, or you might want to talk to somebody, or you might want to just find out what that's all about. But I dream of having it in our everyday life, because it is in our everyday life.
And that's the thing. It's not something that, like, and this was the sort of probably one of the best lessons. It's like, I ran away from it for 10 years. And like I said before, it's gonna
That's-
catch up.
Yeah.
You can't run forever. It's
No.
going to hit you at some point. So it's like that, if you have that relationship with it that's not based through fear, but
Yes.
understanding, it doesn't mean that you're not afraid.
Mm.
Um, it takes away a lot of its power over
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
and over your life. And I think that was the big thing for me, is what I went through. It took away all the power of death. That it wasn't a powerful thing in my life anymore. It was just from understanding of, like, don't get me wrong, I don't want to die. That's
Yes.
not
I don't
not the script. But if it happens, then it happens. It's
Yeah.
it's just part and part. It to be born in your unwritten contract,
Mhm.
to be born, you've already signed that you're going to die at some
Correct.
point.
To be born is to die.
So
Correct. Correct.
so so it's like,
Yeah.
everybody that gets born into this world has already made that agreement.
Yeah, and I think the more time we spend brushing it under the carpet, the more time we spend trying to figure it out when it does happen, and the more confused and lost we are with it, because
Mm,
what I do see is just people just don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with how they feel. They don't know what to do logistically. They don't know what to do with their life going forward. How do I carry on? What do I do with the way that I feel when I've got to go to work tomorrow? So the more we can start having those conversations, the more we can educate, inform, and understand. And then when it happens, because it will, we might be that little bit better at living with it and moving forwards with it,
with
and
it, yeah.
living with and moving forwards with the feelings we have about it.
So, I suppose, in your world, I think there's a couple of things that I kind of want to touch on before we bring this to a close. Is what sort of advice? What's so say, for instance, my mum. So my mum now, and this is the situation that she's gone through, and this is the me and her have different outlooks. We have different relationships with death, in a sense. She's been a nurse for, I don't know. Sorry, mum, I'm gonna get this wrong. A long time, 30
Mhm.
odd years.
Salem.
Yeah, and she's done palliative care. She's been in nursing homes and stuff. So just before COVID started, which was 2021 ish, she had to provide palliative care for her husband, my stepdad,
Mm.
at home. He passed away at home, and it was a brain tumor. So she went through that, which for most people is harrowing.
Mhm.
She's more experienced than most in experiencing death because of her profession,
Yeah.
and she was able to, not many people would be able to provide palliative care at home for their loved one. Then she went straight from that into palliative care for her dad, my granddad. So my concern for her is she hasn't been allowed to feel the grief from her husband because she's gone straight into the doing, like you mentioned. And now that that doing and purpose that she's had for the past 5, 6 years has gone,
Mm,
it's that double whammy of I now got no distraction.
yes.
I'm going to have to sit with the grief for my husband and my dad at the same time.
Yes.
And that's the sort of thing of running away from it that I don't get me wrong, I don't think she had a choice because that's what she wanted to do
Mhm.
and anybody would do if they
Yeah.
could.
Yeah, sure.
Um, what's what's your advice in that sense? Because it's such a difficult thing for me to navigate when I have a different relationship with death
Yeah.
than she does. And I can say to her, look, sit with it and feel it. But I know from being in that at one point, you don't want to sit in it and feel
No.
it.
I think I'd probably try to remove the word advice full stop
Mm,
and probably try to ask questions more. And I feel like if you can try to understand where the person is coming from, so their frame of reference, where are they approaching this from?
mm,
Then that may be one of the most helpful things you can give her is to try to stop giving advice and stop offering a fix, which is a very common thing. We all do it. We see somebody hurting and we want to stop it.
That's a
Um,
man thing as
that's
well.
a
Men want to
human
fix
thing.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably the opposite of that, or it's worth a try,
Mm,
is to be aware of when you're about to offer some advice or a fix. And of course, out of love and kindness, you do that.
yeah, yeah.
But maybe in that moment, it's about just stopping and asking a question instead.
Mm,
How do you feel about it? What do you need today? How are you feeling about facing into these two things that have arrived? What do you think about death and dying?
mm.
So it's trying to meet somebody where they're at and putting our bit aside and our innate response to want to help and fix and sort. You've got to put your packet of plasters away and let the cup bleed out a little bit.
Mm. That's a really difficult thing for like I know we've made light of it, but for a
Mm?
man's like for me, I
Yeah.
I've struggled. So like me and my missus probably have not regular arguments, but we've had arguments in the past where she'll be venting for something. So the one of the ones that I can remember, she was complaining about her job. She came home and she was frustrated with where she was working.
Mhm.
My response, in hindsight, was the shittiest response that I could come up with at the
Mm.
time, which was, "Well, I'll help you look for a new job."
Yeah. So solution focus, fixing
Yeah.
the doing.
Now now that made sense in my head. That was
Yeah.
me caring of like,
Yes.
I'll take the time out of my day to
Yeah.
help you look for a new job
Yeah.
because that solves the issue that you don't like your job.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the right thing to do
Yeah.
at all at the time. It was like she wants to vent and me turn around and go, "How shit is that? That must be absolutely awful." Like,
Yeah.
yeah, what a knobhead. Why did they do that?
Most people just want to be heard.
Yes.
And I think if we can hold tight to that, especially men, um,
Yeah.
because there is that innate want to fix and do and solve, but also for women to learn to communicate if they can in the moment to say, I need to tell this, I need to get this off my chest. I'm not looking for an answer. I don't need
Yeah.
advice. Please, can you just listen? Because I need to have a right rant.
Yeah, yeah.
If it
Get it out.
just needs a little bit of both, doesn't it? We need to get better at saying we don't in this moment, we might do in other times, but right now
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't need a solution. Please, can you help me by just listening?
Mm.
Then it has to be that little bit of give and take, but that just takes practice, I think.
Yeah, it's the so I can't remember. It must have been somebody that I've spoken to in the past, but a lot of like and I say relationship discourse, not just with romantic relationships, but with family relationships, is 90% of the time through uncommunicated expectations
Yeah. Or
of like,
assuming.
yeah, so you're speaking to your dad, or I'm speaking to my dad, and I'm going to tell him that I'm speaking to Lucy today. I'm recording an episode with Lucy today, it's Grief
Yeah.
Studio, and I want him to go, "Oh, I bet that's amazing. That's interesting." And he goes, "All right, why are you speaking? Why are you speaking to somebody about grief?"
Yeah.
I haven't told him what I'm expecting
Yeah.
from him.
Yeah.
So then when that reaction comes and I'm disappointed, that's not his
Yeah.
fault
No.
and it's not my fault.
No.
But I've built this sort of picture up in my head of
Yes.
this is how this conversation's going to go,
Yeah.
and it doesn't go that way. And I come away going, "Oh shit, that was
Oh,
horrible."
that was rubbish. Feel like
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
sort of to be it's a big thing that I'm trying to teach my daughter at the minute. Is specificity is king.
Mm.
If you could, especially going back to AI again,
Yeah.
it's like, and there's a really good part. I'll post the clip actually when this goes live. It's in the genie in Aladdin,
Yep.
where Aladdin says, "Genie, I want you to make me a prince,"
Yes.
and he goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa!" Like that's really like ambiguous. What do you just want me to magic you up a prince, or do you
Yes.
want me to make you like the artist formerly known as Prince, or
And look,
and it's
that's the point, isn't it? You have to endeavor to find the person's frame of reference. So find out where they are coming from in their own mind and self, because it won't be the same as yours. And that's it, isn't it? If you just say Prince, well, that might be Prince the symbol,
yes,
the
yeah,
musical artist.
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
might be Prince Harry, or and it does come back to that, and it comes back to that in grief, and it comes back to that in relationships. It's trying to understand the person you're talking to. Where are they coming from? Because that will influence everything they say and do, and the way they think, their beliefs, their
Mm.
values. What are they? And until you ask, you won't know. And when you don't know, you can't understand. And when you can't understand, you can't communicate. And da 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 da.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so so important. So
Practice.
if anybody's listening to this and has done what I did and swept grief under the rug for 10 years and is maybe feeling a little bit invigorated through this conversation and wants to maybe address it and maybe approach the subject, or if somebody's just recently gone through it and wants to explore it a little bit more about what we talked about, where do they find you,
Yeah.
Lucy?
They can find me on Facebook through the Grief Studio UK. You can find me on the web at www.thegriefstudio.co.uk, or you can email me directly. And if I can't help, I can refer. And that will be under lucytcounselling@gmail.com.
Brilliant. I'll put all them links in the episode description as well, so people
Thank you.
can get there. And I think what you're doing is amazing. I think it's something that everybody will need. Everybody needs it at some point. And it's generally death is a defining memory or moment within somebody's life. Everybody knows either a friend or a parent or a sibling that they lost that's affected them and changed the course of their life as well.
Yeah, it is
Um,
changing. Yeah.
and understanding that is so so important.
Yeah. And
So
knowing that you don't have to figure that all out yourself on your
mhm.
own, and knowing that it is okay to feel afraid of it or at a loss with it. And it's never too late to do that work either. So I think sometimes when we have swept it under the carpet for a long time, but actually, if we're very honest, we're still feeling it. I
Yeah,
think it's to know that you can reach out to someone like me or any of the amazing grief counselors that are out there at any stage, be it early doors or 5, 10, even 15, and so on years later. And that is okay as well. It's just being brave enough in the first instance to just make that first point of call.
mm. And yeah, and start that conversation,
Correct.
and you'd be surprised if I I almost beat myself up about it, thinking, why didn't I start it sooner? Because I feel so much better after it. But then at the same time, like we've already mentioned, I had to go through that,
Mhm.
because if I didn't, then I wouldn't have gone and done the therapy that I'd done, and I wouldn't be the person that I am now. So it is important. But anybody that's listening, and I know a few close personal friends that are trying to deal with um, the new world that they find themselves in after a loss.
Yep.
Um, yeah, reach out. It's important,
Yeah,
big time.
absolutely. And thank you for giving this important topic the space that you have. It's really appreciated.
No, I massively appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. And yeah, thank you, Lucy. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.